Hey, everybody, welcome to Beat the Cult podcast, where we fight cult like religious thinking and practices. My name is Nikki, as you already know, and I am joined today by Prince Tyler again. Thank you so much, Prince Tyler, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me for this awesome conversation.
Absolutely. I told you I wanted to have you back because you have all of this absolute genius when it comes to the history of Christianity and how it's clearly derivative of previous Mesopotamian religions. And I really wanted to have you back to discuss this expertise.
First and foremost, thank you so much for your compliment. But I want to make sure that everybody's like loud and clear when I say this, right? Because basically, I don't have any sort of PhD in comparative mythology or religion. It's just something that I do on my free time. And so, an expert who have like a PhD right now, please double and triple check the stuff that I do in the because like it's like really hard, to get the information to put it together, and sometimes it might be a mistake along the way. And
Sure.
I made two videos for you guys. This is the first video. It's gonna
Awesome.
it will go into more details about the various elements for the first five books of the Bible and the various stories that it was inspired by. So I'm gonna play the first video.
Sorry about that. Okay, awesome. Yeah, please do. And this is Tyler's content from his channel, which I will link below. Did I do that last time? Y'all, I've been so behind. You know, my life has been crazy. I seriously think I forgot to link his contact below. But this time I'm going to do it, please. And I'm also going to link the link for this in the Twitter page. So while Tyler's playing this video, we're going to do that. And all right, Tyler, here we go.
It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler. It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler.
By the way, you want to know like the history of the theme song?
Yes, I do.
So a long time ago, I was like in a Skype chat with like a bunch of friends, and they say, "Hey, it's everyone's friend is Tyler." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm your best friend." Very same night, what happened was that they played the music at the same night, and I got the music, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna film the whole entire introduction based upon this.
I love it. So there's a little, it's a bit of a meme. It's you know, there's a history to it.
Yeah.
That is perfect. No worries, Tyler. I'm going to go ahead and hit play so we can jump into it.
Hey guys, Tyler here. This video is a direct collaboration from the YouTuber Beat the Cult. For those who have no idea who exactly is Beat the Cult, she is a YouTuber that has deep conversations with ex-Christians about theological issues, and I recommend her channel for those who have no idea about it. For today's episode of Comparative Mythology, we're going to compare the various stories from Mesopotamia to the Bible, and the main sources for this video include the myths from Mesopotamia as well as the stories from ancient Canaan. The Bible is a very multifaceted collection of stories. There's about 66 books in the Protestant Bible, about 73 in the Catholic Bible, and over 80 books within the Ethiopian Bible. And because there are
I got to pause just for one quick second. I hope you're still there, Tyler.
Yeah,
I uh
I just
oh
noticed like it's like a little bit of slow down a little bit. Yeah.
oh yeah, there is some lag. Okay. Yeah. I I don't know where that's coming from. I
Yeah.
think this is why the people at the Atheist Experience tell me to plug in my They're like, you need to plug in the internet. And I'm like, well, why? I have Wi-Fi. And they're like, plug it in. Specifically. But okay, well, I guess yeah, we can leave and come back. But I wanted to just make a point. I did not know that there were 73 books in the other Bibles. I thought that was you said there was yeah, like 73 books in the Catholic Bible.
Yes, there's like 73
Whoa.
books in the Catholic Bible, there's like 66 in the Protestant Bible, and over 80 books for the Ethiopian Bible. Now, the main reason
80
why,
books.
yeah, so the main reason why there's 66 books in the Protestant Bible, now, if you go back into history, what happened
Mhm.
was that the King James Bible, for example, had all the books. It had, of course, the 66 books plus the
Mhm.
Apocrypha. But
Mm.
in the 1800s, that's when they decided to remove the Apocrypha to actually cost down on the cost for putting out the Bible. And that's
Mm.
why Protestants have 66 books.
Okay. Okay. I knew about the 66 books, but I'm almost positive my mom would say those additional 7 books are just sinful in the Catholic Church. So I didn't know anything about those books, but I just had to pause because I knew that the Catholic Church had more books than the Bible, but I did not know it was 73. And I did not know that the Ethiopian Church had 80 plus.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit. And that just opens up my perspective more because, in the house that I was raised in with the Christian God, like the specific Christian Jesus, 66 books, we were forced to read that nonstop all the time. And we were never made aware of these other religions in their additional books. So it's such a limiting perspective when you think about it.
Yeah, it
All
does not
right.
it does not even take into consideration the other books that are also removed too, because there's like a lot of books that's been removed, even among
Like
all
St. Thomas.
exactly like the Gospel of Thomas and
Mm,
the books for the Gnostic Gospels and some other stories related to I think it was like Adam and Eve. I get into more details as we play the video. So.
excellent. Excellent. All right, let's go ahead.
Multifaceted collection of stories, you have different theological points for every single last book, which would mean that the religion or the stories that they are told in the story sometimes self-reflect the culture, and sometimes for religions to actually jumpstart, they borrow elements from different cultures to make sure they get new converts. And so there are many aspects within the text that comes directly from Mesopotamia. The first 5 books of the Bible are attributed to Moses out
Let me try playing the video. I think it might be your internet, so I'm gonna try to play it for myself.
Okay, yeah, play it for your side and see if that works.
of church
Yeah, my
tradition.
apologies.
But in scholarship, they use something that is known as the documentary hypothesis. So the documentary hypothesis has the J source, and of course the E source, the D source, and the P source. Now the J source is the Yahweh source, the E source is the Elohim source, the P source is the priestly source, and the D source is the Deuteronomy source.
I
The
have,
main
I have
reason
a quick question. I'm sorry. Are Yahweh and Elohim? So Elohim, that's plural. That's the. Oh man, I can't remember. Hedith. I can't remember, but it's wouldn't Baal or be included in Elohim?
So basically, the word Elohim means more than one God,
Yeah,
and
Henithism.
yeah,
Henithism. Yes.
yes. So I go into more detail about, I guess, in the second video. This particular video does not talk about the various gods. It just goes over the Mesopotamian influence. But the second video will go into more details about the pantheon.
Dope. Okay. So yeah, so I just want to have a quick question. Are you controlling it from your end? Because I want to make sure
Yeah,
that it plays without issue.
so it will not have any sort of lag on the video. So.
Perfect. Okay. I'll just let you know when I have a question then. Okay.
why they're doing this sort of categorization is largely because they have noticed that many parts of the Bible within the first 5 books have various different writing styles within the exact same book. Additionally, according to Deuteronomy chapter 34, basically Moses also dies, so it does not necessarily, you can say, make a lot of sense why a person that dies in his own story wrote his own book.
I was also told that Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. So I've never thought of that before.
Yeah, it's just, the thing is, like, it's just never make any sort of sense. Like, why would a person die if he wrote his own book?
That's hilarious. Okay, that's a good point. You know what? Well, no, I'm not going to bring that up to my family because it's just going to start a fight. But I've never thought of that before. I've never thought of that before.
Speaking about Moses, it seems as though that there's a direct correlation between his story and Sargon of Akkad. In Exodus chapter 2, it says, "Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, he hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then he placed the child in it, and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the river bank. She saw the basket along the reeds and sent her female slaves to get it. The legend of Sargon of Akkad can be dated back from 2300 BCE, and the book of Exodus came out roughly around 1440 BC. She cast me into the river, which rose not over me. The river bore me up and carried me to Enki, the drawer of water. Enki, the drawer of water, lifted me up as he dripped his ear. Enki, the drawer of water, took me at his son and reared me.
By the way, is this the first time you're
Interesting.
hearing about this comparison?
So all I'm doing right now is flashing back to when we went to go see Prince of Egypt in theaters when I was like 10. So that's where my head is. So I'm thinking like, wow, Prince of Egypt really depicted this story in such a beautiful way. Was that developed? Was that directed by Steven Spielberg? Like, I know that's like ridiculous, but that's where my head went first. But no, I have not. So I've heard the story a million times. I am very familiar with it. Are you saying though that this is a story that was what's up, Maya? Are you saying that this was a story that was written in an earlier Mesopotamian text and was kind of ripped away by
Yes, I am. I'm making
the...
an argument, yes.
So Enki, is that Enkidu by any chance?
No, it's like, I think it's like the name of the woman, because basically in the other
Oh, okay.
in the story before, it was talking about how a woman found Moses in a basket, and that's
Okay.
in the story too.
Okay, cool. Because when I was listening to not her name's not Doctor, but Christine at the University of Yale, I can't remember her last, Christine Haynes at the University of Yale. She's an Old Testament scholar, and she went into great detail about the early Mesopotamian religions and how the Pentateuch, I believe that's the correct term,
Yeah,
was taken from it. And one of the characters' name was Enkidu, but I think actually now that I recall, Enkidu was Noah's equivalent.
yes.
If I'm not okay, that's where good. Because I'm thinking, I'm like, I know the mythology not as well as I'd like, but okay, perfect. All right, thanks, Tyler. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Additionally, we have no such historical records to actually demonstrate that a Moses actually exists or that the Exodus actually happened. And there's actually a documentary that goes into great details that's called The Bible on Earth, which goes in specific details about this particular topic.
Are we having what happened? Oh, okay, there we go.
Just in the places where the Bible describes the exodus of the Israelites as they left Egypt, were there fortifications? Was there a military presence there that would have encountered these fleeing Israelites?
Oh, yes. All over the eastern delta and in the Sinai and up in the Negev and further north, there were permanent Egyptian garrisons and garrison points, checkpoints. In fact, the Bedou were constantly under watch by the Egyptian paramilitary police along the borders.
That's very interesting.
A carving at the Karnak Temple attests to the existence of a sophisticated system of garrisons that ensured the logistics of a route that followed the north coast of Sinai. It was a strategic route for the Egyptians that led into Mesopotamia and Anatolia. A fleeing multitude could not have taken it without being spotted and stopped by one of its garrisons.
That's
This left
interesting.
them with the southern and more arid route, the one that is most in keeping with the biblical story.
Okay.
The Bible tells how, after having camped in the desert for almost 3 months, the Israelites received the 10 Commandments at Mount Sinai. They then headed off towards the northeast to the land of Canaan. At that point, the biblical text tells us, they reached the oasis of Kadesh Barnea, located between the Sinai and Negev deserts. It is here that they spent many years after refusing to enter the Holy Land.
So I just want to pause like really briefly. This is so interesting to me. So basically what they're saying is that the story as depicted in Exodus was supposedly, what supposedly took place in this geographical location.
Yes.
But there's absolutely no depiction of this story in this geographical location. Like there's no verification archaeologically or otherwise that story actually happened.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah,
I need to tell my family about this.
Yeah, this comes directly from a documentary called The Bible on Earth. I recommend this documentary series.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, definitely. And send me the link to that and I'll make sure it gets into the description as well. Yeah, dope.
The oasis was thoroughly excavated during the 1950s and 1970s. No remains from the 13th century, which is believed to be the period of the Exodus, were found at the site.
Oh, wow.
Modern archaeological techniques enable us to pinpoint the tiniest remains left behind by simple herdsmen, and yet no trace of the Israelites' long stay in the area is to be found. The absence of any evidence of their journey through the wilderness in either this oasis or anywhere else in the Sinai Peninsula is one of the enigmas of the Exodus story.
How can you explain the possibility of such a large group as described in the Exodus story actually going out of Egypt? Is that possible?
Well, I couldn't explain it. Nothing of that shows up in the archaeological or textual record. And
I'm sorry, it's kind of lagging a little bit. Like it's supposed to show his face, but it's on the image. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yes, and everybody, I'm going to take full responsibility for the lagging video. I am going to make sure in the future that my internet is pristine with as much money as I give Xfinity every freaking month. This should be perfect, but they will be receiving a strongly worded letter from me, and I'm going to have it signed by Tyler. All right, guys. Sorry about that, Tyler.
I'd argue that's an argument from silence, admittedly, but nonetheless, we know so much about that period that not to find even a single blip on the radar screen, as it were, it would be fatal to that theory. Moreover, the biblical account has 600,000 weapon-bearing males leaving Egypt in the Exodus. That would probably translate into
600,000 weapon-bearing males. What? That's like all the males. That's all the males that one could possibly imagine having. That's quite a few people. 600,000 weapon-bearing males. So like 600,000 people, basically between like 18 and 40. How big were these civilizations back then? Oh my gosh. Okay. It was like my mind, that's like, I don't know how, well, the American, of course, is much bigger than that. But 600,000? Yo, that's a lot of people.
to 2 million souls. Can you imagine 2 million people leaving a country of the size of Egypt, which had only a population of 3.5 million at the time? That would have made a huge hole in the social and economic system that certainly would have shown up in the records. It would have resulted almost immediately in a downsizing economically and socially that would certainly have disrupted the empire irreparably. No.
Sorry, I have to pause. He's absolutely right. Who would the females mate with? Who? And I'm going to say mate like I'm David Attenborough. Yes. Who would the females? Who are the females going to mate with? Help, tell me. Tell me who. If you take all 600,000 males that are able to bear weapons, they're done for. That's like almost a third of the population. What? Okay, sorry. I'm going to stop cutting off James Randi here, but yeah. Push play. Sorry, my bad. That's me.
Nothing of that sort is found in the record. Not a thing. I couldn't see the Exodus as described in the Bible as occurring in the 13th century.
In Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, it said, "So God created mankind in his own image. and the image of God he created them, male and female he created them. This verse is a complete contradiction to the verse in Genesis chapter 2, largely because in Genesis chapter 2, it said that Adam was actually created first and Eve was created after Adam when Adam was sleeping down and God used a rib to create Eve. Now, the post hoc rationalization for this particular contradiction is that basically the argumentation goes that Genesis chapter 1 is actually a direct reference to Lilith, and where exactly did the idea of Lilith come from? Lilith's first appearance in the ancient world was actually Gilgamesh and the Hoopa Loopa tree. The book of Genesis was written
Way too close to the Oompa Loompa tree, and you know it. Way too close to the Oompa Loompa tree, and you know it. All right. Yes, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Now we're in my familiar territory. All right, play.
down roughly around 1200 to 1400 BCE, and the Epic of Gilgamesh was written down roughly around 2000 BCE. The years passed, 5 years, then 10 years, the trees grew thick, but its bark did not split. Then a serpent, who cannot be charmed, made its nest into the roots of the Hoopa Loopa tree. The Anzu bird set its young in the branches of the tree, and the dark maid Lilith built her home in the trunk. Gilgamesh struck the serpent who...
Sorry, gotta pause. Lilith, is that Yahweh's wife?
No. Lilith is actually, according to the legends, is the wife of Adam. He's like the
I
first
thought
wife of Adam before Eve.
Wait, Adam had a wife before, then got a divorce, and then married Eve?
Yes, and I explain in more details in the video, yes.
But I was raised to believe that this is absolutely true, and that I was raised to believe that this is exactly how the world started. And I've received so much mistreatment and bullshit from the unwavering belief that this is accurate, that Genesis is accurate.
Yeah, basically the idea, so like I said in the video, the idea of Lilith comes directly from Gilgamesh. And there's like a different story that I talk about later in the video that has a different tale about how exactly is Adam the husband of Lilith, excuse me.
I'm sorry, I have to keep pausing because my actual life is flashing before my eyes right now. I've been hearing these verses since in utero, and that's actually true. My mother said she read verses to me in the Bible from when I was in her womb. And just hearing that these things, like I said, guys, it's derivative. It's shocking to me too, and I keep learning more and more and more, and that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because we need to know this stuff, especially those who've been raised in the church, those of us who've been raised in the church and think that this was law, because I was taught that it was. But okay.
Who cannot be charmed. The Anzu bird flew with its young to the mountains, and Lilith smashed her home and fled to the wild, uninhabited places. Although Lilith's first appearance was in Gilgamesh, there's a story that's more famous than the one in Gilgamesh. The following quotation comes directly from the alphabet Shirwash, which can be dated back from 700 to 1000 AD. When God created the first man, Adam, alone, God said, "It's not good for a man to be alone." So God created a woman for him from the earth like him and called her Lilith. They, Adam and Lilith, promptly began to argue with each other. She said, "I will not lie below." And he said, "I will not lie below, but above. Since you are fit for being below, and I for being above." She said to him, "The two of us are equal, since both of us come from the same earth." And they would not listen to each other. Since Lilith saw how...
Sorry, Lilith was woke, and she was like, "Nah, I'm giving her a hard time." And now I totally feel that Lilith wasn't going for it, and I don't blame her. Go ahead, girl.
it was, he uttered God's name and flew away in the air. Adam stood in prayer before his maker and said, "Master of the universe, the woman you gave me fled from me." It's interesting that the story...
I just want to also add something else. Like in the rest of the story, basically what happens is that God basically punished Lilith by making sure that she has pain throughout the whole entire story. And it's like, it's like you said, it's like, for many people, she kind of symbolized, you could say, the first kind of real feminist kind of icon, because she's
Apparently,
very much rebellious against the God of the Bible, and also
she's woke.
rebellious against Adam, because she does not want to be like, dominated by him.
Yeah, she's wiggity, wiggity, wiggity woke. That's what Lilith is. And I'm not mad at it. I love it. That's one of the reasons like being in the church never worked for me, was because I was always told I was supposed to be the Proverbs 31 woman. I needed to submit to my husband as he was the head of the home, and God was the church, or Jesus was the head of him and the church was the head of Christ, and all that bullshit. And I remember the girls in the church telling me like some type of wild Stockholm syndrome, learned helplessness bullshit, that my whole entire job and purpose was to take care of my husband and his children, and that was it. But it's a very odd thing. It's a very odd thing. It never worked for me personally, but now I only date women who want to fulfill that role. It's so fucking critical, but I love what, like, I'm like dating this girl and she's just like, I want to stay at home, I want to take care of the kids, I want to take care of you, I want to take care of home. I'm like, thumbs up. I like that.
Yeah. Sometimes I hear like same-sex relationship, that sometimes there's a person in the relationship that's like, I guess acts like the male role and more female role.
Yeah. It's true. But I think I attribute it to being raised in the Southeast. I think it's, for me, more of a cultural thing, less of a religious thing, because my mother was a stay-at-home mom. My dad went out, which is weird, first of all, being African American, like having my father in the home, first of all, having parents who, like, my mother married the father of her children and had all of her children by the same man. My dad stayed, for better or worse of my psychology, I guess it's still yet to be seen, but my dad stayed. And so I was raised that way, and I am a very go out and provide type of person. So the girls I talk to, they're just like, that's what they want to do. And I guess we're just a good fit. But if she didn't want to do it and I met the right girl, I mean, that's cool. But I like the idea of, having a June Cleaver canceled. I like it. I don't know. It's just, I'm canceled. It doesn't matter. I'm already canceled. But Lilith, I'm there for her. I totally get that. That's real. The Proverbs 31 woman thing never worked for me, but for some people it does. And if it does, good for them.
You can see why that kind of story did not make it in the Bible, because it's just too empowering.
It's way too empowering for females, and females are not supposed to be empowered. I'm not saying that they're not supposed to be, but in the Bible and religious circles, no, females aren't supposed to be empowered. So, yeah, sorry about that rant, but
let's continue on. Yeah.
All right, play.
Story mentioned that humanity was made from dirt, because according to Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, it says that the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. You will find a very similar parallel that comes directly from the Epic of Adaharis.
Have you heard about the Epic of Adaharis prior to this?
Just the Epic of Gilgamesh, unfortunately.
So basically, the Epic of Adaharis came long before Gilgamesh. It has the same sort of flood story. So within the story, what happens is like a bunch of gods decide to create humanity because they did not want to do like a lot of hard work, and so they created humanity directly from clay. But because humanity was making like a lot of
loud. Yeah, they were loud.
Yeah, they were basically loud and they were making like a lot of noise.
Like babies.
So what happened was that the gods decided to flood the whole entire place. Yeah.
Why am I so here for that though? You know what? I wish I could flood my neighborhood, because these children make so much. It's like the same logic, right? The kids are always running around making so much noise. So just flood the whole fucking thing. Wipe everyone out. Finally get some quiet. Totally get it. But that's the story of Enkidu, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Boom. See, I learned stuff.
Midwives of the gods, wise mommy, you are the womb goddess to be the center of mankind. Create primal man that you will bear the yoke. Let him bear the yoke. Let man bear the yoke of the gods. Netsu made her voice heard and spoke to the great gods. It is not proper for me to make him. The work is Enki. He makes everything pure. If he gives me the clay, then I will do it. Enki made his voice heard and spoke to the great gods. On the 1st, 7th, and 15th of the month, I will make a purification by washing. Then one god shall be slaughtered, and the god can be purified by immersion. Neptune shall mix clay with his flesh and his blood. Then a god and a man will be mixed together in clay. What's fascinating about this story is the role of the snake and the Hoopa Loopa tree. The main reason why I say this is because in Genesis chapter 3 it says that the snake is more crafty than any other wild animal that the Lord God has made. It also says in Genesis chapter 2 verse 9 that the Lord God made all kind of trees grow out the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eyes and good for food, and in the middle of the garden, the tree of light and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So what exactly does Gilgamesh have to say about this? A snake smelt the sweet plant that Gilgamesh left on a rock. The snake came out suddenly and stole away back to his hole where he ate it. After he ate this magical plant, the snake felt rather strange. His old wrinkly skin began to feel loose and crumbly. Soon he slithered out of it and woke away using his new shiny youthful skin, and from that time on snakes have always shed their skins. But when Gilgamesh came out the water and saw that the plant of immortality was gone, stolen away by the snake, he wept and walked bitterly.
So
Interesting.
the similarities right there.
The molten. Yes, absolutely. I always find these stories so intriguing. It's almost like a childish explanation for scientific or zoological understanding that we have today. We know why snakes molt. But back then, I mean, God bless them. They didn't know. And that's my side coming out. God bless them. Bless their hearts. I just can't get away from it. I actually still pray. People are going to be mulling away. I still pray. And it's involuntary. Like I'll be driving down the road and it'll start raining. And involuntarily, I'll be like, God, I hope it doesn't really start storming. It's my mother. It just comes out. I'm like, God, I hope it doesn't storm. Oh, God, I hope this truck doesn't come into this lane. Lord, please protect me. It just comes out. I totally don't understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Expression to the culture is like involuntary, so I understand what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Seriously, don't even believe that Yahweh or Jesus, or I don't believe in them. But I will seriously like, God, I hope that I get this job, or God, it just comes out. But yeah, I was raised on these stories. They do sound familiar to me. We do understand why these animals engage in the behavior that they engage in now. But in their defense, they did the best they could. Like why the leopard has its spots or whatever. But yes, very familiar. Well, according to my father, the tiger has its stripes because God gave it to him. So I totally get it. I talk about them a lot, if you can't tell.
Okay.
As you guys can clearly see, the snake in both stories represent the bad guys, and so it seems though that Genesis is using tropes directly from Gilgamesh in regards to the snake. So based upon archaeological data, it seems though that in the ancient worship for Ashura, she was actually also represented as the tree of light.
Yeah, so basically, this is an image right here that can be dated back from the 9th, early 8th century BCE. And this is Ashura, which happens to be one of the gods in the pantheon that's being represented by the tree of light. So earlier in Genesis, it says there's the tree of knowledge and good and evil. There's also the tree of light. And so what I'm trying to argue right here is that perhaps in the story, that the tree of light is actually representing Ashura.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Interesting. All right. I didn't know that.
And so it might be entirely possible for the case of Genesis that when it talks about the tree of light, it might be a direct reference to Ashura, at least in my educational guess. There are two other cases where Gilgamesh have a direct influence in the Bible. That night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and 11 sons across the ford. After he set them across the stream, he sent over his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. Enkidu.
Now hold up a second. First of all,
Like on the side note, like it's kind of funny. Like in the story, God lost wrestling with Jacob.
so first of all, can I get 2 wives and 2 female servants? We're gonna leave it there. That's the first thing. Second of all, when I hear and now that I'm hearing this story again, because once again this is a story I was raised on, wrestling with Jacob until daybreak, and then the ankle dislocated his hip, or the angel dislocated his hip. If I talk to my brother, he may be able to tell me a little bit of something about wrestling till daylight and getting your hip dislocated. Let me just say that. Okay. let me just say, now that I'm rehearing this verse, wrestling till daybreak and dislocating your hip. Okay. Better pop that back into place and get back to work. You feel me? Sorry.
Like how could this guy be all powerful if he cannot handle a wrestling match?
Well, I mean, wrestling match. Yeah. Wrestling match.
But
the females weren't involved in.
But this part right here, I'm actually comparing like the wrestling match with the story in Gilgamesh, because there's like a similar kind of motif right here. So.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that story, but no, wrestling match has different meaning to me.
He blocked the gate with his foot, not letting Gilgamesh in. They wrestled with one another, locked like bulls. They scattered the doorposts, and the walls shook. Gilgamesh and Enkidu wrestled with each other, locked like the bulls. They scattered the doorposts, and the walls shook.
Basically, to provide some context for that whole entire story, there was actually a story earlier prior to this where it's kind of resembles to the story to Adam and Eve for the Epic of Gilgamesh. So what happened was that in the wild, they found this guy kind of like Tarzan. His name is like Enkidu. And I believe in the story, if my memory was actually correct, that they sent like a woman there to actually, tame the beast.
Make him a man.
Yes.
That's Christine Hughes. Yeah, I learned that from her.
The story was that apparently they made love all night long, like days upon days in.
Yeah, it was for quite some time.
Yeah,
because he was running with the bulls, quote unquote, and he was a swift and very primal and feral, but God supposedly needed to use him to lead, so he sent a female to basically civilize him.
Yes,
which is what that's why I tell young. Well, let me not say that. That's why I think young people should get married, because I think that help them calm down. But like, that's such a horrible thing to say. Well, maybe it's just
and so that's the main.
It helps you.
But yeah, that's like the main reason why he has a wedding. Like this whole entire part happens during the wedding between the woman and Enkidu. And when he saw Gilgamesh, that's why they began to wrestle and everything else in the story.
All right. Very cool.
Yes.
Now the context for that verse was that Enkidu was going to get married to his wife, which, by the way, resembles the same kind of story like Adam and Eve, and that's why they wrestled in the first place. But the most famous example so far has to be the flood story. What exactly is the history of the Mesopotamian flood stories? This article comes directly from the National Center for Science Education. It says, yes, Noah's flood may have happened, but not over the whole world. The two rivers, the Euphrates and Tigris, flows through Mesopotamia, which is now the country of Iraq. There are several layers in exposed rock near the two rivers in southeastern Mesopotamia that are likely flood deposits, most about a foot thick, but one is much more than 3 meters thick, according to the data. Now, flood debris came from the same thick deposit along the Euphrates River near the ancient Sumerian city, roughly around 200 kilometers southwest of Bangladesh, that's been dated back by the C14 method, giving an age about 2900 BCE.
I want to put this in perspective, because Gilgamesh came out in 2000 BCE. The book of Genesis came out roughly around 1400 BCE. So all these stories that came after it was largely expired by that flood.
Interesting.
Yes.
Never knew that.
It's like you're learning a lot tonight.
I told you my life was flashing before my eyes. I was not being facetious when I said that. I mean that. My life is flashing before my eyes. I'm like, okay. Makes me want to go like
you learned about was a lie.
I just want to go like home and like kick my parents' door in like all aggressively and start yelling at them. So I totally, that's why I keep referencing my family, because my family this was my life growing up. Like my family's whole thing is religion, Christianity, Jesus Christ, Son of God, charismatic, born again, non-denominational. Like this is them. So this is why I do this and why I reference them so frequently is because this was my life. Every day, Bible verses, every day, Bible lessons, every day. I was homeschooled with a Becca, whatever that Bible curriculum is from Pensacola. So that's why this is my reference point. And yeah, I'm shook right now because when I was raised on this, I was told specifically this was real. There's nothing, if you can't depend on anything else, you can depend on these stories, you can depend on Jesus Christ, you can depend on these things. And they still to this day believe these things to be accurate, believe them to be historical. And they're not. I mean, it's just as simple as that. But yeah, so you guys will have to forgive the recurrent references to my familial upbringing and kind of, these reference points. This is kind of the basis for what I do and why. So yeah.
So what exactly does the Gilgamesh story say?
Okay, cool. So this is the Babylonian Ark tablet text.
By the way, that's Holy Humanist, if you don't know who she is.
Oh, cool. I don't, but I like that accent.
Yeah, she's from the UK.
Oh, you referenced her.
Yes.
Yes, you guys do. You've done some work before. I want to have her. Give me a second. Make a note.
Right.
Holy Humanist.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a note to have her on if you don't mind kind of brokering that. That would be awesome because I don't know where to find her. Except
By the way, she told me yesterday she cannot wait to see this live stream.
She did what?
She told me she cannot wait to see this live stream.
Oh, dope. Hey, girl, I hope that you're watching. If you're not, if you are, drop it into the comments. If you're not, then we'll hook up later. Not actually hook up. You know what? Push play.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
basically she read parts of the story, and it's better in a British accent than our accent, so why not?
Isn't everything better in a British accent? Everything. Maybe hook up. Big thing, stop it. You and I, we can't do these things. It cannot be this way. And yes, that Florida Jesus, that's the Jesus that my parents worship, and they voted for Trump twice. And they're black. But I always joke with my parents, I always tell them that they're like slave masters reincarnated as black people because God wanted them to learn a lesson and they still haven't learned it. And they didn't think that was funny. I'm like, you all know you were slave masters from 300 years ago and you're reincarnated as black people because God told you that you needed to have some empathy towards black and stop being so horrible. And they're like, that's not funny. I'm like, it's a little funny, but I can see why you take offense. But yeah, all right. That's my bad. Sorry about that.
Text. And it reads, wall, read wall, Atrahasis, pay heed to my advice, that you may live forever. Destroy your house, build a boat, spurn property, and save life. Draw out the boat that you will make, oh my days, on a circular plan. Let her length and breadth be equal. Let her floor area be 1 field. Let her sides be 1 nindan high. Your Kanu ropes and Aslu ropes, rushes.
I want to contextualize this part because this actually came before the Epic of Ata-Horus. It also came before Gilgamesh. This is something that was recently discovered by the British Museum back in the 1980s. It's called the Babylonian Ark Tablet. It's actually the oldest collection of the story for the flood today. So it goes from particular text to Ata-Horus to Gilgamesh to Noah's Ark.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I will be following up. So I love bookstores. The next time I'm going to go to a bookstore, I'm going to be looking for these books because this is incredible.
Hold on, let me check out like what's the name of the book that I got the text from. Just give me 1 second. I have it on my cell phone.
Oh no, you're good. While you look that up, I just want to thank everyone for watching. Please be sure, because I never ever do this because I forget. Please be sure to drop a like and also hit the comments. Let me know what you think about this. I mean, this is the first time we've done this on my platform. While we have someone come in with some expertise and some real live expertise, and they drop some videos and some resources, and we start to, we learn a little bit. So if you like this format, please let me know. We will be doing it again. And yeah, thank
so
you, Tyler.
So the book that has the Babylonian Ark text is actually called The Ark Before Noah.
Oh, okay. You'll have to send that to me so I can put that.
Let someone else twist the fronds and palm fiber for you. It will surely consume 14,430 suttu. I set in place 30 ribs, which were 1 parsiktu vessel thick, 10 nindan long. I set up 3,600 stanchions within her, which were half a parsiktu vessel thick, half a nindan high. I constructed her cabins above and below. I apportioned 1 finger of bitumen for her outsides. I apportioned 1 finger of bitumen for her interior. I had already poured out 1 finger of bitumen onto her cabins. I caused the kilns to be loaded with 28,800 suttu of kupru bitumen. And I poured 3,600 suttu of iti bitumen within. The bitumen did not come to the surface, lit up to me, so I added 5 fingers of lard. I ordered the kilns to be loaded in equal measure. I applied the outside kupru bitumen from kilns. Out of the 120 go measures which the workmen had put to one side, I lay myself down of rejoicing. My kith and kin went into the boat. Joyful
And this is the
of
same
my
guy.
in-laws and the porter with and.
Just a quick disclaimer. This was the same dude who was getting drunk and throwing that ass in a circle naked in front of his 3 sons. That's what the Bible says. That's not what I said. I was just, But yeah, but Ham, the black one, looked upon him, and therefore black people have been fucked since the beginning of time. I just want to make sure I'm following the same story. Okay.
Yeah. That's the whole entire part about the man getting naked. It's like that's like a later addition for Noah's Ark. I don't think the earlier texts have that. That's something unique to it.
Well, this is a parallel of the same story of a man just getting drunk as hell and just falling out butt ass naked in front of his sons. That's always a good way to be. So butt ass naked in front of your kids. Good job.
They ate and drank their fill. As for me, there was no word in my heart, and my heart, of my lips, I slept with difficulty. I went up on the roof and prayed to the moon god Sin, my lord, let my heartbreak be extinct. Do you not disappear?
Yeah, the main reason why it has like the periods is because like they cannot decipher what exactly does the text say, so that's why it has the periods. Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Sin from his throne swore as to annihilation and desolation on the darkened day to come. But the wild animals from the steppe, 2 by 2 the boat did they enter. I had 5 of beer. They were transporting 11 or 12, 3 measures of sikbum, 1/3 measure of fodder, and cordinu plant. I ordered several times a 1-finger layer of lard for the girmadu roller, out of the 30 gur which the workman had put to one side. When I shall have gone into the boat, cork the frame of her door. Okay, so this is the Epic of Gilgamesh, and it reads, Shuripuk, a city which thou knowest, and which on Euphrates banks is set. That city, as were the gods within it. Ooh. When their heart led the great gods to produce the flood, man of Shurupuk said, tear down this house, build a ship, give up possessions, seek thou life, despise property, and keep the soul alive. Aboard the ship, take thou the seed of all living things, the ship that thou shalt build. Her dimensions shall be to measure, equal shall be her width and length. That's literally verbatim again. Prince. Oh my days. I understood, and I said to Ea, my lord, behold, Lord, what thou hast thus ordered, I shall be honored to carry out. But what shall I answer the city, the people, and the elders? Ea opened his mouth to speak. Oh, God has a mouth, saying to me, his servant, thou shalt then thus speak unto them. I have learned that Enlil is hostile to me, so that I cannot reside in your city, nor set my foot in Enlil's territory.
Quick pause. Yes, God has a mouth. It's that anthropomorphization that makes it so difficult to take religion seriously. That's my whole entire point. You have to understand that this is a representation of humans' best attempts to be godlike. God is simply the anthropomorphization of fate, trying to make fate human-like so you can relate to it, manipulate it, and get it to do the things you want. There is no God. There's no Homo sapien-like figure floating around in space that you can't see, that listens to your shit, that cares about your keys, that cares about your job, or even you, or your ill self, your children. I hate to say that, but she makes a great point. Ooh, God has a mouth. Yes. And he likes the smell of food, and he likes bitches. And that's something that God and I have in common. We like meat and we like women. And that is why that's why Yahweh and our best friends. But no, she's right. To her point. Yeah, we love he likes the smell of meat. It's pleasing to his nostrils. He wants Moses and his soldiers to take 2 women at least per man. So these are the things that God wants, and she has a good point. So my apologies, excuse me, for stopping it, but she's right.
The deep I will therefore go down to swell with my lord Ea, but upon you he will shower down abundance, the choicest birds, the rarest fishes. The land shall have its fill of harvest riches.
Yeah, basically the theme of animals is reoccurring in this too.
100%, and the same beef between the gods. That he can't reside in the same city as Enlil. He who at dusk orders the husk greens will shower down upon you a rain of wheat to deceive the residents of Shuruppak, real and rain. With the first glow of dawn, the land was gathered about me. The little ones carried bitumen, while
bitumen, like in the first ever slide, remember?
Yeah, I did not forget that word. That and the big bum thing or whatever. John knows. He laughed with his cat. But yeah, while the grown ones bought all else that was needful, on the 5th day I laid her framework. 1 whole acre was her floor space, 10 dozen cubits the height of each of her walls, the dozen cubits each edge of the square deck. I laid out the shape of her sides and joined her together. I provided her with 6 decks, dividing her into 7 parts. Her floor plan I divided into 9 parts. I hammered water plugs into her. I saw to the punting poles and laid in supplies. 6 sar measures about 8 gallons of bitumen I poured into the furnace.
Quick question. Why do you think they went to such great lengths to lay out the specifications of the measurements for this?
That is a good question. It's like, one of those things, like, how, you cannot necessarily know about the origin of the universe. You cannot necessarily know about, like,
who wrote it and why. Oh,
in their mindset.
Right.
Yeah.
I just find it very intriguing that, and that's, honestly, I know the Bible is a quote unquote sacred text, and a lot of other sacred texts have such, trivial information in it, but it's just intriguing to me, honestly, to see such detail added to really unimportant things, how to build an ark, build a boat. But I guess they were trying to legitimize it. I don't know.
Yeah, the thing about them trying to get like these other stories into the Bible, it's almost like when I read the Bible, it's like a greatest hit of the greatest myths together, because I kind of, see like the parallels almost everywhere in the Bible, especially the Old Testament.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's like, it's kind of sad. Like, I guess humanity takes it really seriously. If they were to do like, if they were to do like the amount of crazy research like I did for this video.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, honestly, you don't even have to do an eighth of the research. I mean, and I appreciate that's why I had you on, because I was like, he puts so much effort in, probably even more than a PhD, to understand this stuff. But people just don't. It's so frustrating, especially in our community. I have to admit, we do the least amount of research, but yet we're so susceptible to these lies and misrepresentations of fact and reality, and it's frustrating. Frustrating. But thank you for putting in that work. It's appreciated.
No problem.
3 sa of the basket bearers transferred, aside from the 1 sa of oil which the Colkin consumed, and the 2 sa of oil which the boatman stored away. Bullocks. Oh gosh. You know what? One day people are going to read the way that we write and crack up. Hundreds and hundreds of years from now. Actually taking the mic. And I killed sheep every day, mussed red wine, oil, and white wine. I gave the workmen to drink as the water. Oh my gosh. That they might feast as on New Year's Day. On the 7th day that ship was completed. The
There again, like 7 again. It's like again with the 7.
100%. It's right there.
Mm-hmm. So, just a quick side note. My mother gave all of her children 7 letters in their name because, according to the Bible, 7 is the number of perfection or something like that. So 7 is a recurring theme, and she used that as a basis for naming her kids. So, sorry about that. But back to it. Very interesting.
The launching was very difficult, so that they had to shift the floor planks above and below until 2/3 of the structure had gone into the water. Whenever I had laid it upon her, whatever I had of silver, I laid it upon her. Whatever I had of gold, I laid it upon her. Whatever I had of all the living being, I laid it upon her. All my family and kin I made go aboard the ship. The beasts of the field, the wild creatures of the field, here come the animals. All the creatures I made go aboard, here they are. From penguins to Siberian
kangaroos.
Shamash had set for me a stated time. Oh, all the craftsmen go aboard as well. Okay. And then, yeah. When he who orders unease at night will shower down a rain of blight, board thou the ship and battle up the gate. The stated time had arrived. He who orders unease at night showers down a rain of blight. I watched the appearance of the weather. The weather was awesome of behold. I boarded the ship and battened up the gate. To batten up the whole ship to the boatman, I handed over the structure together with its contents. With the first glow of dawn, a black cloud rose up from the horizon. Inside it, Adad, god of storm and rain, thunders.
I love how the henotheism is so apparent in the Epic of Gilgamesh, but yet the Bible goes to the great lengths to limit henotheism and make it more monotheistic, putting all the focus on Yahweh, and then discrediting the other gods like Baal and the gods that the Egyptians worshipped, putting them head to head in this kind of like magic, like dance off. And I just, it's so intriguing to me, just seeing the evolution of religious belief and text development. It's just
incredible. So the main reason, like, remember earlier in the video I talked about the various, like, sources, like, the J source and the P source, the D source and the E source. So
yes.
So basically when it comes down to Genesis 1, they use the E source, and that E source is known as the Elohim source. So it refers to multiple different gods for that particular E source. But when you go to Genesis chapter 2, it uses the Yahweh source. And so basically it says Yahweh Elohim, referring to one God. And so one chapter is like, many gods, but then on the next one, it's like one God. And so,
it's wild to me because Elohim was worshipped in my church as synonymous with Yahweh. Yeah. Even though Elohim is plural for many different gods, Yahweh, that title or that label was attributed to Yahweh only. It's almost like a not blatant misunderstanding, but kind of a passive misunderstanding of the text that they're reading. I don't think it's intentional. I just think people are just kind of generally.
I think it's largely ideological reasons. Like, for my case, when I look at the text, I try to apply like a historical lens and critical analysis.
Exactly.
more
As you should.
like a theological lens for them applying that to the translation of the text. That's why that's why they're doing it that way.
I agreed. And for those who haven't been challenged in this belief and kind of hear it reiterated to them throughout their lives, and hear it every Sunday from such a limited perspective, they're not going to approach it this way from a critical standpoint. So just learning about this is so incredibly valuable. And Brother GA, I hear you. I've studied some of it, like through the Faith Instinct, and I've listened to, of course, to Christine Hayes, but there needs to be effort put in to understand these things. And honestly, a lot of people, especially in the church, don't and won't do it. So yeah, totally get it.
Nergal, the god of the netherworld, tears out the dam. The Anunnaki lift up the torches, setting the land ablaze with their glare, turning to blackness all that had been light. Light landed like a pot. For one day the south storm blew, gathering speed as it blew, submerging the mountains, overtaking the people like a battle. No one can see his fellow. Oh, again, the theme of not being able to see anyone. No one can see, nor can the people be recognized from heaven. The gods were frightened by the flood, and shrinking back, they ascended to the heaven of Anu. The gods cowered like dogs.
Wow. That's
Wow,
mind-blowing.
these weak gods. The gods cowered like dogs. That's such a funny line because there's gods and dogs, like. Crouched against the outer wall. Ishtar is there as well. Ishtar cried out like a woman in travail. The sweet-voiced mistress of the gods moans aloud. The olden days are alas turned to clay. It's all over.
Wow.
Because I bespoke evil in the assembly of the gods. How could I bespoke evil in the assembly of the gods, ordering battle for the destruction of my people, when it is I myself who give birth to my people? Like the spawn of the fishes, they fill the sea. The Anunnaki gods weep with her, their lips drawn tight, one and all. 6 days and 6 nights. Blows the flood winds as the south storm sweeps the land. When the 7th prince day arrived, the flood carrying south storm subsided in the battle, which it had fought like an army.
Yeah, when it comes down to this theme about the 7 days, I would say that the origins of that comes directly from, I guess, ancient culture, because for some reason they thought that 7's like a day of resting. And you can see this theme all the time in the Bible too, because in the 7th day when the God of the Bible rests, that's of course the day when he took off, right?
The sea grew quiet, the tempest was still, the flood ceased. I looked at the weather, stillness had set in, and all of mankind had returned to.
By the way, that comment is true. Like, there's always a goddess thunder in every culture. My favorite,
Agreed.
but I would say that the best one by far is Thor. That's the best goddess thunder.
I didn't even think of Thor as the god of thunder. It's so ironic. Can you imagine if they tried to recreate Jesus as like a Marvel hero? How offensive it would be. But can you imagine, like, just to the I guess Vikings or the Nordic tribes, how offensive it would be for them to depict Thor in such a way? Like thousands of years ago, but people don't think about that. They're the same, guys.
It's for the Marvel movies, like they're different than the mythology for the Norse mythology, because in the original text, Thor was actually depicted as like fat, right? But in the movie,
Wait. He was fat?
Yes.
But Chris Hemsworth isn't fat though. He's fine.
Yeah, but that was like in the original mythology. But in the movies, he's like skinny, so that's a humongous change right there.
Actually, he was fat in Endgame for like 2 seconds, and then he was shamed into being thin again. But he only after he cut off. Wait, who knocked off Thanos'? Infinity War is the best Marvel movie. Cancel me. But yeah, I didn't know that. That's pretty interesting.
And also, I think in the original stories, like, he cannot pick up the hammer. Like, I mean, in the movies, right, you have, like, Thor can pick up the hammer. But, like, I think in the mythology, like, anybody can actually pick it up.
But he can?
Yeah, but he can also do that too. But, like, anyone else can pick it up too in the mythology.
But in the movie, you know what? Disney is a scam and a fraud. So nothing. Don't believe anything they say anyway. But no, it is just it is interesting to see these earlier gods or gods that were worshipped more prominently, the pantheon of these other religious beliefs. People wouldn't dare depict Jesus that way today. People would be so offended. How dare you make my God seem like a human being? Even though it's so hard to take it seriously. I mean, you look at Jim Caviezel, you look at all these other depictions of this hot, sexy Jewish dude who's I mean, the Passion of the Christ is a snuff film. Yo, that's okay. I don't know how many people were up in the theater trying to like just under their coat, just
Yeah, I remember watching that when I was like a little kid, and I was
they
like,
took us to see it after church as a youth group outing.
wow.
I'm sitting there watching this man get the shit beat out of him, crying. We're all sitting there crying. It was horrible.
I thought that they made like at least 2 different versions for that movie, because I think they made like the kid-friendly version and then the adult-oriented version.
No. See, I could have watched nothing else. But I could watch Jim Caviezel get the shit beat out of him looking fine too. He
Yeah.
looked good. They
Yeah.
made Jesus look sexy.
They made like a different cut because people were complaining about how violent it was, so that's why they made the second cut of the movie.
Well, we didn't see that cut.
Yeah.
We were up there watching him get whipped, and I was having nightmares about Satan for about like a few days. And I had to Google it to see the woman who actually played Satan, because I was like, this is terrifying. And it was wild.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me. I need
Yeah.
to like do like a video talking about the origins of Satan too someday.
Oh, that would be awesome. I'll definitely have you back on for that. And I will make sure that that the everything works beautifully. But yeah, like no, it's that I remember like going to see that as a child, and it just kind of it fucked me up. It fucks me up. But I think that was the goal, though, to fuck you up. So yeah. But yeah, let's.
I still have memories when I was an altar boy. You know, it's kind of still fucks me up to this very day. At the very start, because I told you last time in the other stream that I was part of the Catholic faith, and so they thought that the Eucharist is
That's
actually
true.
literal, and so
Yeah. I don't know if I was just too not cute to be like. You remember that? You ever watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I heard about that movie, but I never watched it.
Oh, it's a hilarious show. It's I don't want to make a joke about child assault, but because it's not funny. But they did an episode where like the gym teacher was assaulting people, and then one of the main characters got mad because he was like, "Well, I wasn't cute enough as a kid for you to assault." It's Always Sunny is like so on the nose, and so it's like Family Guy. Like I lost a viewer just now. It's like Family Guy. It's so offensive. But like it doesn't matter. You could be a cute kid, ugly kid, it doesn't matter. But I was just gonna say, like, thankfully I was very blessed. I'll say blessed to not have to deal with that. But there are a lot of people who do. And I hope, like Richard Dawkins, they don't play it down like he did, but they go and pursue help. Because I used to date a girl who would just go through that. She was like going down the lineup, like, oh yeah, my priest, my my priest, my soccer coach, my neighbor, my cousin. I was like, yo, she's like, oh, it was normal. I'm like, no, it's not normal. You need to talk to somebody. Like, that's not okay. So, yeah, like it's, I was blessed. Basically, my point is I was very blessed never to have to deal with that, but a lot of people have. And if you have, please, if you feel it's good for you, or if you're like Dawkins and just don't care, I still think it's helpful to get help. But that episode wasn't cool, but the joke was funny. Yeah, I know. That episode was kind of fucked up. It was, but It's Always Sunny is a very funny show. But yeah, they push the limits just like Seth MacFarlane pushes the limits. But yeah. Just a side note, right? Being an altar boy.
Play. The landscape was as level as a flat roof. I opened a hatch and light fell on my face. Bowing low, I sat and wept, tears running down my face. I looked about the coastlines in the expanse of the sea. In each of 14 regions, there emerged a region mountain. On Mount Nisir, the ship came to a halt. Mount Nisir held the ship fast, allowing no motion. For 6 days, the ship was held fast by Mount Nisir. When the seventh day arrived, I sent forth and set free a dove. The
Wait,
dove,
let's stop right there. Like basically, the dove is also a Noah's Ark. That's like one pack. Okay, let's go. Let's continue on.
The dove went forth but came back. There was no resting place for it, and she turned round. Then I set forth and set swallow. The swallow went forth but came back. There was no resting place for it, and she turned around.
So this reminds me of, is it Snowpiercer? Where they saw the polar bear and knew, I can't remember, but just a quick Richmond. So Richmond made a comment about me using the word blessed, as he should. As he should. I was Richmond, I was telling Tyler a little earlier, I still catch myself using the phrases my mom would use, like prayers. Like I would be saying prayers. I don't believe in this God at all. 100% atheist when it comes to this God. But I'll be like driving down the road or like on a road trip and I'll see these clouds and I'll be like, God, I hope it doesn't. God, I pray it doesn't rain. And I don't believe it. And it's my mom. It's my mom. I'm telling you, because this woman uses that language all the time. And she'll be like going through the house, cleaning, speaking in tongues. Like this was my upbringing. It is so hard. It is so ingrained in my fucking cerebellum that I cannot get rid of it. So yes, Richmond, you're right. That word blessed. And I am from Tennessee, guys. Like I'm from the Valley of the Appalachian Trail. I'm wearing fucking flannel. Like it's not going anywhere. Like it's not going anywhere. So yes, I say blessed. And I mean, when I say blessed, I mean lucky or fortunate. Yeah, Maya, some words just don't have accurate alternatives. Like it's not like I'm just like, oh God, I hope this, or I pray I get this job. I don't pray I get the job. It's just words of solace that I was taught as a kid and they come out and I kind of love it. Like it shows some variation and flexibility in my life that I'm able to duly accept that I don't believe in this God and I don't believe in the mythology, but the ritual, the purely human aspect of it, that kind of verifies my idea that this is human created. It doesn't come from a God. It comes from us. And it's a ritual, it's a ritualistic practice that I engage in still. So yeah, Richmond, mad love for you, babe. Always. But yeah, like Richmond, you're so right. Like, yeah, it still comes out. I say, oh my God, all the time. Yeah, girl, of course. But it still comes out even today. But yeah, let's resume.
Sent forth and set free a raven. The raven, yeah. Do you want to comment, Prince?
Yeah, about the raven, like that was also in Noah's Ark because first he sent a dove and then a raven before he came out the ark. So that's like I wanted to say.
Yeah. The raven went forth, and seeing that the waters had diminished, he eats, circles, claws, and turns not around. Then I let out all to the four winds and offered a sacrifice. I poured out a libation on the top of the mountain. 7 and 7 cult vessels I set up. Upon their plate stands I heaped cane and myrtle. The gods smelled the savor. The gods smelled the sweet savor. The gods crowded like flies about the sacrificer. As soon as the great goddess arrived, she lifted up the great jewels which Anu had fashioned to her liking. Ye gods here, as surely as this lapis upon my neck, I shall not forget. I shall be mindful of these days, forgetting them never. Let the gods come and to the offering, but let not Enlil come to the offering. For he, unreasoning, brought on the deluge, and my people consigned to destruction. As soon as Enlil arrived and saw the ship, Enlil was wroth. He was filled with wrath against the Igigigi gods, heavenly gods. Oh, I love that word. Igigigi is my new favorite gods. Has some living soul escaped? No man was to survive the destruction. Ninurta opened his mouth to speak, saying to Enlil, who other than Ea can devise plans? It is Ea alone who knows every matter. Ea opened his mouth to speak, saying to valiant Enlil, Thou wisest of the gods, thou hero, how couldst thou unreasoning bring on the flood? On the sinner impose his sin, on the transgressor impose his transgression. Yet be lenient, lest he be cut off. Be patient, lest he be dislodged. Instead of they bringing on the deluge, would that a lion had risen up to diminish mankind? Instead of thy bringing on the deluge, would that a wolf had risen up to diminish mankind? Instead of thy bringing up the deluge, would that pestilence had risen up to smite down mankind? It was not I who disclosed the secret of the great gods. I let Atrahasis.
Alright.
Damn! Direct naming. See a dream, and he perceived the secret of the gods.
Yeah, so basically it all comes back to Adaharis.
Yeah.
Interesting. This pantheon, this concept of multiple gods in this religion, still kind of hard for me to accept, or not accept, but kind of, well, yeah, maybe not accept, but understand, I guess, because Yahweh is it, right?
Yeah, the thing about it though, that this is not necessarily in reference to the pantheon that Yahweh's part about. It's like part of like a whole entire different pantheon in that particular story. But in the next video, I'm gonna talk about in more detail about the pantheon that Yahweh's part of. Okay.
Of course, of course.
Yep.
Now then, take counsel in regard to him. Thereupon Enlil went aboard the ship. Holding me by the hand, he took me aboard. He took my wife aboard and made her kneel by my side.
The final example for the case of Mesopotamian influence for the Bible will be the case of the Tower of Babel. The historical Tower of Babel is known as the Itimi.
Kind of a little bit lagging a little bit.
A little bit of lag.
But there it is. There it is.
Anunnaki. This image right here is an example of what the Itiminaki would have looked like back then. What's so ironic about this is that the Itiminaki was not dedicated to Yahweh worship. It was actually dedicated to the god Marduk.
So to basically to contextualize everything, this is actually in direct reference to the Tower of Babel. So what I was doing right now is that I'm trying to say that there was actually a real building that the Tower of Babel based a story upon. But it was not necessarily because of Yahweh worship. It was actually for a god named Marduk, according to the story.
Oh, interesting. So a god named Marduk.
Yes, and so basically, by the time they retell the story for the Genesis account, the way I kind of interpret it is that basically Yahweh is saying that, you know, I'm the bigger god than you, Marduk. So
Marduk. Okay. All right, Yahweh, Marduk, get at it.
So basically, Marduk. Have you heard about the story called the Illuma Elish?
I'm recounting Christine Hayes in my head, talking about the Illuma Elish, but I don't remember in what context.
Yeah, so one of the guys in the Illuma Elish is in fact Marduk in the later tablets, but they said that the Illuma Elish basically influenced the first chapter of Genesis when it comes down to creation, and I'm gonna go into more details in the video.
Very cool.
I would recommend the book that is known as the Illuma Elish, and it goes into great details about what exactly is the deity Marduk. So when I read that story for the Tower of Babel, what I'm seeing is that Yahweh is saying that I'm actually the bigger god in comparison to this lower god. That's how I basically kind of interpret the story based upon the historical information. Besides the fact that the Tower of Babel is actually based upon a real building, we also know that there's like another story that also influenced the story in the Bible. The story is called Amaraker and the Lore of Arata. My sister let Arata fashion gold and silver skillfully on my behalf. Let them cut the flawless Lupis Luzi from the blocks. Let them, the translucent of the flawless Lupin Luzi, build a holy mountain. Let Arata build a temple brought down from heaven, your place of worship. Let the people of Arata bring down for me the mountain stones for their mountain, build a great shrine for me. Erect, the great Abrok for me. Make the great Abrok of the gods, famous for me. Make my prosper, and Kaluba. On that day, when there was no snake, when there was no scorpion, when there was no lion, when there was neither dog or wolf, when there is thus neither fear or trembling, men have no rival. At such a time, may the land of Suber and Hamazi, the many-tongued and summer, the great mountain of the me, of magnificence and Akkad, the land possessing all that is befitting, and the Martu land, resting in security, the whole universe, the royal-guarded people, may they all address annually together in a single language, for at that time, for the ambitious lords, for the ambitious princes, for the ambitious king, Enki, the Lord of abundance, and of the steadfast decisions. Enki, the Lord of abundance, of the steadfast decisions, the wise and knowing Lord of the land, the expert of the gods, the chosen of wisdom, shall change the speech into their mouth, as he has placed there, and so the speech of mankind is truly one.
In other words, so the big difference between the story and the one in the Tower of Babel. Well, first of all, this story actually came out before Genesis. So I think roughly, 20,000 BCE. But you notice how in the Tower of Babel story, basically everybody spoke one language before they actually got down the tower. Now this one, it seems as though that everyone was speaking different languages, but now spoke one language. That's the big difference between the stories.
Interesting. Interesting. Once it's similar, like again, to the story of the snake and why the snake molts. Like it's like them trying to explain something they don't understand. And I mean, it is kind of an interesting question. Why are there so many languages? Of course, it's regulated to geographical variances amongst, humans as we started to spread out across the world. But they're just doing their best. And people today need to understand that people trying to do their best 2,000, 4,000 years ago doesn't translate to us doing our best now. We have science. You don't have to believe these stories. They're cute. They're mythological. They're, Grimm's fairy tales, but you don't actually have to apply them to real life.
Yeah, I think one thing that I heard about when it comes down to the original language was that I think that humans begin to replicate the sound of birds, and then from birds, they, begin to make sounds, and from sounds we add meanings to the words that we have. I think that's the idea that they have for language origins.
Interesting. Yeah, well, it's not scientific.
Directly from, what was this guy, Noah Chomsky or something? That's the guy's name?
Noam Chomsky.
Yes, that guy.
Yep.
That's what he argued for, I think, for the original language.
Very interesting. I have some Noam Chomsky books, but like my Steven Pinker books, they're just kind of sitting there. I need to read them, but yes. Yeah.
This whole entire story does a complete 180 in comparison to the story in Genesis, because in Genesis, it seems as though that humanity spoke one language before many different languages. In this story, we have people speaking many languages, but now one language. Speaking about the Enuma Elish, there's direct parallels between the creation story and that story, as well as Genesis 1. When on high, the heaven has not been named, firm ground below has not been called by name, and Mamu Tiamat, who bore them all, their water crumbling as a single body. No reed has been matted, no matchland has appeared. When no gods whatsoever has been brought into being, uncalled by name, their destinies undetermined, then it was the gods who were formed within them. The obvious similarities based upon the text include the polytheism within both Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2, as well as the separation of chaos within both texts. It also talks about the various types of water and basically their separation. So there you have it. These are various stories of...
Okay, so this...
Tiamat.
So this,
I remember Tiamat.
Yeah, so this right here is actually the ending for like the first video. So can you play the second video, please?
Of course.
Yeah.
Y'all prepare for Tyler's dope intro.
It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler.
Hey guys, Tyler here. Roman mythology, Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, Norse mythology. What exactly do they have in common? For starters, all of them share a divine pantheon within their mythologies. Now, before I get into more detail, let's first define what exactly is mythology, because mythology has many different definitions depending on the site and the dictionary you use. According to Britannica, myth is defined as a symbolic narrative, usually of unknown origin and at least partially traditional, that schemely relates actual events and is especially associated with religious belief. It is distinguished from symbolic behavior, called and ritual, and symbolic places or objects, temples or icons. Myths are specific accounts of gods or supernatural beings involved in extraordinary events or circumstances in a time that is unspecific but is understood as existing apart from ordinary human experience. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, geez, Tyler, what does the Norse myths, the Babylonian myths, the Egyptian myths have to do with the Bible story? Well, for starters, and not a lot of people don't really know this, but there's actually hints of polytheism throughout the whole entire Old Testament for the Bible. And so throughout this video, I'm going to explain why exactly I think there's polytheism within the Bible itself. In Genesis chapter 1, we do see the word Elohim.
I just want to pause really quickly and just say, hey guys, Christianity is mythology. Just like everything else. It's gonna blow your fucking mind when you realize Christianity is mythology. So just wanted to say that.
That's being used. Now, the word Elohim is traditionally translated as God for most English Bibles, but the actual meaning for Elohim means more than one God. And now, according to most Christian apologists, they will use Genesis chapter 1, verse 25 as evidence for the Trinity, largely because they suggest that that part actually refers to angels, and it also refers to, of course, like the whole entire Trinity, right? But at the same time, we do know that during the Iron Age period, that roughly the people during the time period that composed these books were not necessarily believing the idea of a Trinity, because we do know that basically such people back then were actually basically polytheistic.
I want to further clarify that the idea of the Trinity is like a much later development. This happened around, you can say, I believe it's 225 AD with the Council of Nicaea. So basically, they were having a humongous debate or like a lot of theologians about the nature of God. Is Jesus actually God? Because some of the early Christians, they did not actually believe that he was actually God himself. They thought he was inspired by God, but not God. And so they were brought together by Emperor Constantine to debate about this. They also debated about Easter during that time period. That's where the whole entire idea of the Trinity came from.
Okay. Quick question, Tyler. What is the name of your channel?
Prince Tyler.
Straightforward and to the point. Prince Tyler. Hopefully you should be able to find it, Raven. And also I will, for once, link all of Tyler's information in the description. So let's resume.
In the ancient Canaanite religion, the people back then worship a host of different gods. The head god was basically El. The second head god was Ashura, who was the wife of El, and was also the goddess of fertility. There was also Baal, who was the god of the storms, and there was also a host of 72 other different gods within the divine pantheon.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry to cut it off again. Why do you think Baal was like the number one enemy of Yahweh in the Old Testament? Why aren't these other gods referenced as frequently?
I think the main reason why he was considered to be the number one enemy is because, according to scholars, what they were trying to do was combine, I guess you can say, the ideas of Yahweh and Baal together to make sure that he's actually a storm god. And I think that's the main reason why they continue to battle it all out in the Old Testament, if I'm not mistaken. What's also fascinating in the Old Testament is that we have bits and pieces of like the Ashura worship. Because if I remember correctly, I think they said some along the lines that basically for the case of Ashura, they used to, I think, drink wine according to the worship of Ashura too, besides the fact that she was represented by the tree of light. And also
Hmm.
I think she was represented by like a lot of like different kind of trees that they kind of cut down throughout the whole entire Old Testament. Yeah.
Interesting. So these were pretty much the pantheon that the Bible we read today is based off of.
Yes.
These were the gods. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just find it interesting that Baal was the god that they kind of went after, because when the when the Jews were supposedly escaping, or the Israelites were escaping the Egyptians, that was the god that they began to worship when they made the molten calf, or is that another god?
I think that's the same one. That sounds about right. That's like the same one, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah, because I think for the case of Yahweh, we do know historically speaking that I guess you can say the earliest kind of followers, they were part about this. I think it was this Yahweh cult, and that was
Mm,
roughly around the Bronze Age period when all of this began to happen, according to the data.
interesting. Very interesting. Ah, I knew it was a good idea to have you on.
A book that's called Stories from Ancient Canaan that goes into great details about the various activities that the gods have done in the past. The following quotation comes directly from the story.
By the way, this is a story called El's Freaking Game. So this is actually
Love it.
so basically in this story, all the biblical gods are together and having fun. So let's listen to the story. It's actually pretty cool.
Story that's called El's Freaking Game, where El and the gang get crazy drunk in a party. El slaughtered game in his house. Game in the midst of his palace invited the gods to the choice cuts. The gods ate and drank wine until they were full, knew wine until they were drunk. Moon set his body down like a dog. He crawled beneath the tables. The gods who knew him prepared food for him, and the one who did not know him beat him with sticks beneath the table. Estar and Annette he approached. Estar he had a steak prepared for him, and Annette a shoulder cut. The gatekeeper of El's house rebuked them, not prepare a steak for a dog, nor prepare a shoulder cut for a hound. He rebuked his father El as well. El was sealed. El was sealed in his drinking party. El drank wine until he was full, knew wine until he was drunk. El went to his house. He reached out his cord. He smeared him with crap in his piss. El collapsed like a corpse. El was like those who go down to the underworld.
So this was basically a college frat party?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right, Richard. Mm-mm. So that was basically just a frat party. That sounds like college to me. Yes, we were not, well, we weren't really like smearing piss and shit everywhere in college. So yeah, but see, this is wild. Like, they are people. The gods are people. Like, how difficult is it? I love this. This is well, first of all, my childhood is, I'm in a bit of shock regarding my childhood, but this is so wild to me. I wasn't planning on hearing about a drunk night. Happy Monday. And yes, Raven, we do both have underrated channels. And when I did, or when I was on Matt Dillahunty's show, he did say that he reviewed the channels and he agrees that they're underrated. So subscribe to both. There you go. All right. Let's roll. I
find it so fascinating just how humans these gods are. Like, many people say that we're made in the image of gods, but really what we do is make our own personal self-projection on ourselves to those gods to have these kind of personalities just like humans.
I made the exact same point like you did earlier.
Exactly, because that is the most glaring point. You guys are freaking humans. The smell of meat, women. Come on now. Yeah.
But what's also fascinating to me too, besides the fact that they were having a party in the ancient stories, is also that the storm god Baal also died and basically rose from the dead way before Jesus Christ.
That's
What?
yeah, that
Blaspheme. You're blaspheming right now.
yeah. Like prior to my research, I had no idea that the like Paul in the Old Testament had like died and rose from the dead before Jesus. I did not know that prior to studying this.
Wow. I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's crazy. Richmond, excellent point. The structure was based on despotic kings that ran the king. Those are the parallels drawn. It's one of my good friends today, this older Jamaican dude, he's totally dope, and I'd love to have him on the show. His name is Noel. He was talking about the movie Caligula, about Caesar and Caligula's rise to power, and just how despotic he was, and all of the hedonistic behavior he would engage in. And this is what these deities are doing. Like, this is not different at all. It's really intriguing. I think gods are just the rich and famous of us, really. I really think they are. And yeah, Richmond, they did have the best orgies as well. For my orgies, never been in one, ashamed to say. I'm going to need a doctor and a nurse practitioner at my orgy. I can't. All y'all are getting tested. I'm not touching anybody. Y'all can have monkeypox and God knows what else. But yeah, not happening. No.
We arrive at the lovely place, at the beautiful fields at Death's Shore. We came upon Baal. He has fallen to the ground. Baal the Conqueror has died. The Prince, the Lord of the Earth, has perished. Lift Baal the Conqueror unto me. Son, the god's torch obey. She lifted up Baal the Conqueror. She put him on Aneth's shoulders. She brought him up to the heights of Zalhan. She wept from him and buried him. She put him to a great pit in the earth. She slaughtered 60 wild oxen as an oblation for Baal the Conqueror. She slaughtered 70 pale oxen as an oblation for Baal the Conqueror. She slaughtered 70 sheep as an oblation for Baal the Conqueror. She slaughtered 70 deer as an oblation for Baal the Conqueror. She slaughtered 70 mountain goats as an oblation for Baal the Conqueror. She slaughtered 70 asses as an oblation for Baal the Conqueror. But if Baal the Conqueror lives, if the Prince of the Lord of the Earth has revived, and the dream of El the Kind, the Compassionate, and the vision of the Creator of the creatures, the heaven rain down Oriel, that I will know that Baal the Conqueror lives, that the Prince, the Lord of the Earth, has revived, and the dream of El the Kind, the Compassionate, and the vision of the Creator of the creatures, the heavens rain down Oriel. El the Kind, the Compassionate, was glad. He put his feet on the soul. His bow relaxed and he laughed. He raised his voice and declared, now that I can sit back and relax, my heart and sight can relax, for Baal the Conqueror lived. The Prince of the Earth is alive. But Tyler, what about the man?
As you can see,
Interesting.
the major difference between the resurrection of Jesus and this one, of course, is the animal sacrifice. But when you think about it,
Interesting. But Jesus was the animal sacrifice. That's what I was taught.
yeah, it's just it's kind of funny too, because all these animals that are being sacrificed for this particular god, doesn't that not remind you about Leviticus a little bit?
Oh, it's heavily, yeah, because the Levites, because they were priests, were the population was charged with caring for them. And the best way that they cared for them was by bringing them resources and by disembowing these animals in such a specific way, putting the liver here, the kidneys here, all of that, and cooking it a specific way. And the odor was pleasurable to Yahweh's nostrils. So this is so intriguing. Absolutely intriguing.
God of the Bible, I mean, surely he has something to do with this, right? In Genesis chapter 2, the phrase that's being used is Yahweh Elohim. Now, in this context, Yahweh is a reference to the deity, the God of the Bible, and Elohim refers to that deity, and so it's actually in the singular in this particular context. Now, what's also interesting to me is that the origins of Yahweh in the Bible is particularly unique. In 1 Samuel chapter 1 verse 3, it says Yahweh Shabbat. Now, what exactly does Yahweh Shabbat mean? Now, the word Yahweh refers to the deity, and Shabbat refers to armies or hosts. And so basically, he's basically calling the God like a god of the armies or a god of war. In Exodus chapter
When people tell, like, when I have conversations about this kind of topic with Christians, like, they say, like, all the time that God is love. Like, literally, I know the history. It's like, started off as a war god. So it's like, you can't really tell me it's love.
No. You know what's so interesting is I would talk to my brother about these things, and I would say to him, I was like, there's a reason Yahweh persisted, Jesus persisted. It's because these gods were the most aggressive ones. If you get behind them, they're going to protect you. They're the ones that are going to provide for you and make life easier. And he was like, yo, you're right. Like, that's why Jesus, or like the God of the Bible, is so appealing, because I know he's very threatening. And I know that if I'm on his side, then I'll be okay. So, yeah, it makes sense.
chapter 15, verse 3, it says that Yahweh is a man of war, that Yahweh is his name. In other words, it seems as though that the God of the Bible was originally worshipped as a type of war god. But the question then becomes, how do you actually connect the God of the Bible to a pantheon? Is there some sort of textual evidence to support that statement? God takes his place in his own assembly. He pronounced judgment amongst the gods. I say, you are gods, you are all son of Elion. You will surely die like humans and fall like any prince. Elion is just one of many names talking about El, the high god. And so what he's trying to say right here is that he's referring to Yahweh as like one of many of his sons.
Okay, so
Interesting.
like another example I have for the case of him being part of the pantheon. Do you remember the Book of Job?
Oh, how can you forget? Getting fucked over by God and Satan.
And Satan. So they were all together in that divine pantheon there for the Book of Job.
We really need to go into Satan's origins, because this man gets, or man, see, this person, this incarnation gets so much shit. And I'm pretty sure it's just Yahweh who's acting a fool and blaming it on Satan. Just like when I was a kid and I used to like do bad shit and be like, yo, it was my sister. I'm pretty sure that it was Yahweh.
Have you read the book that was called Drunk with Blood?
What was it called?
Drunk with Blood. It's like a
Drunk
book.
with Blood.
Yeah, it's so basically in the book it says that there's like over like I think 20 million steps for God in the Bible, but there's like I think less than 60 in comparison for Satan.
See,
Yeah.
that man didn't do nothing. God, leave Satan alone. He didn't do anything. That's wild.
What is also fascinating is that the god El combined together with Yahweh to make one super god, because according to Exodus chapter 6 verses 2 and 3, it says, and God said to Moses, I am Yahweh. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai, but I did not reveal my name Yahweh to them. Remember when I said earlier that Ashura was the wife of El? Well, after that fusion with El and Yahweh together, Ashura for a short period of time became the wife of Yahweh. Not too long ago, we found an ancient artifact, and that ancient artifact says Yahweh and his Ashura, and so the symbols on that ancient artifact represents both Yahweh and Ashura together. To recap everything, the God of the Bible was part of the divine council of 72 different gods. He had a mom, he had a dad, and much later on, he had a wife, but gradually over a period of time, more and more ideas about this God had developed in more sophisticated ways, to the point that they call him invisible, because he actually manifested in the physical before, but not anymore.
I'm gonna need for you to stop blaspheming right now, sir. You are blaspheming against the name of my God. Okay, my God didn't have no mama, no daddy. He is the I am. He is the beginning and the end. He is the Alpha and the Omega. And you, sir,
all this
are not going to blaspheme.
Yeah, all of this information, like it was
Wow.
never taught to me in Sunday school.
No, man. Like this was. So, guys, when I had the idea to have Tyler on this show, this is what I was wanting. this is what I was hoping for. This education, this shock of just bringing you straight just into reality. It's shocking. It's just shocking, and I appreciate it, Tyler. You're amazing. Yeah. Thank you for this. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, this is the
No.
it's actually over right now, so we're done with the video. I'm gonna remove it. Okay.
No, I thank you. And I cut off the video. Well, it's shocking. I mean, for me, and for those who have grown up in the church and where this is kind of the foundation of their life and their understanding, it's incredible. Yeah, God ain't no name. No, it's not a name. It's not a name, Richmond. You're right. So it's like, wow, mind blowing. Tyler, you're incredible. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate you having me on to share this information to your audience, because the amount of time and effort to research everything for these videos has been really hard. But I hope that
of course. Yo, as Raven says, you are really are. I wish more people can actually listen. You're incredible. I want to have you on again. It's going to have to be a quarterly thing, or I'm going to have to start paying you, because eventually, because it is a lot of research. It does take a lot of time. And between you and Damien at Hope, I've learned so much. And it's really valuable to have you both on. I would love to. Oh my God, if I had you both on at the same time, my head would absolutely explode. I'd be like, I cannot contain all of this freaking knowledge. But it's great to have you on. I want to thank everyone for watching. Tyler, thank you so much again. All of the information you provided, send it over to me. And this time, my life has slowed down a bit. I will put the information in the description. But once again, Tyler, before we jump off, can you please tell us where to find you?
Okay, I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok at Tyler Preston 20. My YouTube channel is Prince Tyler. My Twitter is Prince Tyler. So follow me there on all these sort of social media sites.
Please do. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to drop a like and also drop a comment. Tell me about your upbringing. Have you heard these stories before? Did you know that Yahweh was someone who had a mom, had a dad, had a wife? Tell me all of the things that you wake up. It's mind blowing, right? So yeah, if you guys, and also please subscribe. It does help me with the algorithm. I am doing a better job of getting back into posting regularly, and I'd like to start doing reaction vids as well, because humans are up to some bullshit out here and we need to laugh at it. So keep an eye out. Also, thank you so much to my Patreons, Prime and front and center and prime of them all, Richmond Dies, who was in the comments today. Richmond, you are incredible. Thank you so much for the support. Also, Jason Morris, thank you so much for your support as well. And Juno Kaplan. If you guys do want to help me on my Patreon, it is patreon.com/beatthecult. I do welcome any assistance with that. I do my podcast weekly. I'll be getting into reaction videos, and you always know I love to argue on Twitter, so pay me for that. But thanks again for everybody who watched today. Thanks again for Prince Tyler for coming on the show. Can't wait to have you again. And you guys have an excellent night. Did I remember everything? I think I remembered everything. Did I? Okay. Bye, y'all.